On this episode of the Star Trek Universe podcast, we are talking about Star Trek Discovery 106, Lethe.
Ooh.
Right after this.
I don't know what that means. Welcome to the Star Trek Universe podcast. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I'm David C. Robertson.
Hey, Dave. How's it going, buddy?
Oh man, it's been a busy week.
Yeah. What's so busy with you?
What's so busy with me?
Yeah.
Oh, it's mostly stuff on the DC On Screen podcast, honestly.
Yeah, man. Those DC and Marvel shows are so much work. We got to give up that life.
Man, you know those.
Just kidding. To not to start a rumor among the people that follow us over here that we're like conspiring to leave the other shows because we love them.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to leave that. That's my baby.
Yeah. I just realized I might be starting a bad rumor.
But you know, they're doing that big like CW crossover, Elseworlds, and Aquaman's coming out this month. There's just so much.
Yeah, Marvel's actually in a bit of a trough right now. So we got no shows on television. We got, I think, Runaways starts soon or something like that.
Does it?
Yeah, Runaways season 2.
Yeah,
but that's like the next thing.
My kingdom for a drought, man. My kingdom for a drought. Just
yeah, it's kind of amazing to take. Just like last week, we actually just took a week off because we had so much going on, and this week we're going to start back. But it's it's nice to have a drought every once in a while, but I love this stuff, and I'm happy that it's coming out.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
All right, so let's dive into this episode. What do you think? How about you give us that summary there, Dave?
Sure, Matt. The summary as per CBS All Access. The USS Discovery crew is intrigued by new addition, Lieutenant Ash Tyler. Sarek seeks Burnham's help, rekindling memories from her past. Admiral Cornwell questions Lorca's tactics. That's a whole lot of not really getting into the episode.
Right.
Because there's so much episode.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Again, we're talking about these episodes having just a lot of different storylines going on when it feels like... I mean, obviously, I feel like the main thrust of this episode is Sarek is dying and needs help, and Burnham's connection to his Katra is allowing her to communicate with him telepathically.
Right.
But the Lorca stuff is sort of a side note. It's definitely important, especially once we get into some spoilers at the end of this episode, which we've started doing now, which I like.
Sure.
But
enjoy that.
But yeah, this episode. Yeah, I feel like. Do you have any strong negative feelings about? I know you don't really like the portrayal of Sarek. Is that correct?
I don't like the portrayal of Sarek. I don't care for James Frain too much. Like, he was fine when I saw him in Gotham. He was fine when I saw him in the Peggy Carter series. I don't like his Sarek. I feel like his Sarek is just not as stoic, you know. Like Mark Leonard's Sarek, which he was Sarek for a long time. I didn't care for Ben Cross in the Abrams movies either, because they both Ben Cross and James Frain lack is this stoic mysticism. Like, Mark Leonard just embodied this like strange ancient wisdom and stubbornness somehow at the same time.
Right. I wonder if that has to do... I mean, to me, that could have to do with the different situations we've seen him in, and also the different age, of course. We've never seen him at this age. But also...
We've seen him 10 years later.
Right. Which, you know, I feel like he was pretty darn stoic in the shots we saw of him in reality.
He seemed petty to me. Like, he just like... In
what way do you think he was petty? I don't...
Well, we are not technically related. Like, dude, shut up.
That didn't seem petty to me. That seemed like he was trying to put her at I do think they're trying to put emotion. The thing that I don't like, and I like the portrayal of Sarek. It's fine. I don't have a really strong connection to Mark Leonard Sarek or whatever. Like I most of the Sarek I know I like have gotten from books and stuff. I don't really have that strong of a connection to early Sarek, or prime Sarek or whatever. This Sarek is all good. But what I don't like, we've talked a lot about human versus Vulcan, emotion versus logic. And I feel like Discovery just seems to be especially in this episode, is making sort of the decision to seem like emotion is correct and human is correct.
Well, yeah, that's what they usually do.
Well,
on Star Trek.
I don't think that's usually what they do in all situations, especially in older Star Trek original series. They would each have a point, and in this, it seems like, instead of being a person, they are repressing their emotions. Like, that's true. That's what Vulcans do. But in this, it seemed like a little, instead of being like an ancient practiced repression of emotions that like is leading to some sort of perfection of their logic, it seemed like he was just repressing emotions just under the surface. Like, it seemed like he was too petty to talk about the thing that he felt like he did wrong in this episode, which I don't like.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't think it's the actor's fault. I don't agree with that necessarily. I just think that the text and the subtext of this episode is like, Sarek did a bad thing. He's very regretful of the bad thing.
Well, I'm not necessarily opposed to the pettiness so much.
Yeah, I feel like Vulcans are petty all the time.
Yeah. I'm not really opposed to that. I don't think, like, that is totally Sarek. Like, he's stubborn, he's petty, he's very highly regarded, but he has real issues with his kids, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. And and that's what I was getting at when I said this could be a result of him being in a different situation. Because Sarek, we know how he relates to Spock, sort of. We have a lot more information about how he relates to Spock. How he relates to Burnham is, I think, what they're trying to explore here, and they're trying to say that he's got a different connection with her than he has with Spock.
But it is fine, because I don't consider this part of the Prime universe anyway. But he does just feel like a completely different Sarek to me. He's a completely different person.
Right. And not to dive too much into our problems with the canons and da-da-da, because we do that every week.
Right.
But it's worth mentioning. I just know you have mentioned in the past not liking this portrayal of Sarek. And
I'm on the verge of not liking this actor. I've seen him kind of do the same thing a couple of times now, and I'm like, I'm not feeling it.
I liked him. I liked him as Theo Galavan. I liked him. I've liked him in everything I've seen him. I've never really disliked him. But neither here nor there. I enjoyed this episode. How does this stack up canon wise? How does it stack up with like previous uses of the Katra and the connection over distances and things? Do you know?
I have seen a lot of people complain about it.
Okay.
And talk about that's not how mind melding works.
It's not just a mind meld. He put a part of his Katra in her.
Yeah, that's important to note. I think they referred to it as a soul graft.
Yes,
in this episode. And I will say,
may just be something we've never seen before. Or I assumed this was similar to what Spock did to McCoy. With putting he put his entire Katra into McCoy, which is different, but.
It is different because Michael was dead for 3 minutes, and Sarek basically brought her back with a soul graft, and that gave them a connection. I will say this, Spock did mind meld with the Horta without even touching it at first in The Devil in the Dark. He did attempt to meld with Kalinda by any other name through a few feet of solid rock.
Okay.
He did attempt to meld with V'ger.
That's right.
In the motion picture and he couldn't touch that. There are he even like influenced a guard through rock. It's you don't have to touch. You just don't.
Right. No. Well, touching is different though than doing it over the sectors or whatever.
Right.
It's one thing to say this power is a power that they have over a number of feet. It's another thing to say they have this power over a number of galaxies.
Yeah. Well, it should be noted that with discipline, that might be more possible. But this was a subconscious thing. I don't think Sarek realized he was even doing it, and he has that Katra connection. They can make up whatever bullshit they want, is what I'm saying, because in the original series, that's what they did. They said, "Oh, it's a rare thing. We don't ever use it. It's kind of dangerous." And then, like, once they introduced it, Spock was doing like every other episode, and over great distances, through solid rock, etc. Like, it's just kind of there for your amusement.
Vulcans,
really.
I just don't really. I'm not as studied up on all the original series stuff, and so I don't really know the sort of limitations and such of mind melds. I'm not really giving it shit. I just don't know. Just curious.
Oh, I prepared all this information because I had planned to talk about all the people who are complaining about it.
Cool. Well, I'm glad I asked then.
Yeah.
What a great synergy we have.
We do, man.
You, someone who prepares, me, someone who doesn't know what's going on. It's just really nice. Nice synergy. And you're like, you call it synergy. I call it me doing all the work.
Yeah. This is why I look tired all the time, Matt.
This episode I liked it a lot. I really liked the Lorca stuff, honestly. Maybe I like the Burnham stuff too, but the Lorca stuff, him sending the Admiral to her capture was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was fun to see as far as Lorca is concerned. It is one of my big problem points for the show.
Why is that?
Because if you're an admiral, I don't care if you just hit that or not. If you think that this guy is the captain of the most advanced ship in the fleet, if you think he has lied on his psych evaluations, maybe you go ahead and report that before going on the insanely dangerous mission to talk with asshole Klingons who just imprisoned and tortured said captain.
Well, it's a different group of Klingons.
They're at war.
Right.
It's the Klingons.
I'm with you. I'm not saying it's not a thing she maybe should have done. I think she was still giving it some thought. She said she was ready to do it, but I think there's a reason she didn't do it yet. I think she was still questioning. She says it right there. She's like, I don't want to ruin your career, but I've got to do this. When I get back, it's happening. And that gets into the whole, the communications among the Federation seem so easy on Discovery, over great distances, and it doesn't feel like they're out there on their own ever.
Yeah, in old Star Trek, it seemed like. Well, I mean, to be fair, it was at the power plot, man.
Sure, sure.
It always has been.
This is too.
Yeah.
One thing I look for in these episodes is a novel idea, because I think Star Trek is full of novel ideas. Last week we talked about the.
There's been a lot of novels written about Star Trek.
Did you make that joke last week? I think you may have made that joke last week.
I have no idea.
Last week we talked about the choose your pain and that whole thing being just sort of a novel idea. That's an interesting way of making characters interact. This episode felt very normal. It could have the plot felt very much like it could have been any sort of. I guess the soul graft is a novel idea, but it's more of an extension on the mind meld and the things that have been going on in Star Trek for a long time. So this just didn't feel like it blazed any new ground to me.
I feel like the soul graft is less of a novel idea and more of a plot convenience.
Yeah, I could see that. But as you've discussed, So was almost all the other stuff. I mean,
I'm not giving it shit for anything.
It's science fiction.
Not for that, anyway.
Yeah, it's science fiction. You set up the rules, and you can manipulate the rules as you like. But what I like in my stories is if the rules are sort of stable, and then the characters move within those rules in interesting ways. And this one did that in a fair way. I liked all of the Sarek thinking back to her graduation stuff. I liked a lot that was the big reveal of the episode, was that he chose Spock over her.
And it was for nothing.
Like, his regret makes a lot of sense. I don't know that regret is logical, but I don't think it has to be in this scenario. I think that I think Sarek is a really interesting figure because he's been around humans so much, and I think he's willing to show his humanity, and his emotions, I should say, to Burnham more than he's willing to show them to Spock. And that's what I was getting at earlier. I think that, like, him letting his guard down a little bit, or maybe being a little more see-through with her, might be a result of her own humanity, which I know that Spock is half human, but Burnham being, fully human, and he also knows that she no longer sees emotions as a flaw. She now sees them as something that's incorporated. Maybe he's sort of viewing her as a more idealized version of what beings should be,
Yeah.
Because she has learned to make her emotions and logic work together. I didn't like, though, the end of the episode, she says, he says, Ash Tyler tells her something about, like, that's what it is to be human. She says, my struggle's always been between logic and emotion, and now it's my emotions that are having conflict. And he says, that's what it is to be human. And she kind of goes, huh, I'm Michael Burnham. And she kind of changes her demeanor and starts smiling and acting different. And it was like she was embracing her humanity in a way that she's like, seems almost like she's throwing out the idea of all of the logical Vulcan stuff. Like, it seemed like such a small moment for her to just be like, I'm Michael Burnham. I'm resetting my personality.
Yeah. It was weird.
It felt to me like the show was saying emotions are right. and I hate that.
Yeah, but I also feel like they've been doing that all along.
On all Star Trek?
Yeah, most of them, yeah.
I don't agree. I think that often, I think it's the third way thinking. It's Kirk thinking. Like, I know that I say that over and over, but, like,
you do.
There are often times in the original series where Spock is right and McCoy is wrong. Or at least Spock is half right and McCoy is half right, and Kirk has to think of something that works with both sides of the brain,
Right, but that's Michael Burnham's entire character. I'm not saying it wasn't weird what she did. I don't care for this writer, honestly.
Oh, the writer of the episode?
Yeah, and I guess I'll talk about that later somewhat.
Well,
but
he's written other episodes this season?
He's written so much more Star Trek, man.
I mean, feel free to dive into it now if you want.
I'm not going through the list, because there are a few that I like, but I just don't care for him. Like, he did an episode, of DS9 called Distant Voices as well. Like, he's done a whole bunch of Star Trek, from TNG through Voyager.
Gotcha.
And I think Time's Arrow was one that I actually liked, but
I don't know.
He's upset. So. Time's Arrow is the one where they go back in time and hang out with Mark Twain.
Okay.
And there's, like, they find the data head in the cave.
Oh, yeah. I remember liking that, but I don't think I've seen it since I was a child. So
he seems to have a little obsession with the Greek Lethe thing. Like, he created a race of distant voices called the Lethians, who were a telepathic species, and they would basically, a lot of them were like mercs who who would like telepathically attack people for money.
Okay.
He's a kind of a thing about that. I just generally find his episodes clunky.
Okay.
Like, a little bit like, I don't know what the characters are supposed to do, but here you go.
Yeah. It did seem less character-driven and more just, like, where you need the plot to go driven, which I don't love.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that.
And you know, all the stuff you were talking about with, like, yeah, it's you know, Sarek chose Spock, pretended it was Michael's shortcoming, you know, and, you know, he felt bad about that choice. He felt like his choice, or Spock's choice, made his choice useless and worthless, and that's awesome. I would have loved it if they had, like, touched on just a little bit. Like, I feel like it was a really awesome idea because Sarek, if you think about it, has a lot of disappointment in his life. His first kid was fully Vulcan, but eschewed the teachings of Surak.
Right.
Decided that emotion was the key.
Well, do you think...
And went on some mad quest to go find God.
He's also married to humans. Do you think that he believes his own failings caused these things? Like, is his regret based in the fact that, like... And at this point, he doesn't know his one son is doing that, or does he? I don't really know what his first son is doing at this point.
I think Sybok was... It's unclear. Sybok was the product of a marriage between Sarek and a Vulcan princess, so he was full-blooded Vulcan.
Right.
And he, you know, was ousted from Vulcan for, you know, teaching that... for basically being a Romulan, essentially. For basically saying, like, oh, emotions are the way. And,
right.
We don't know if Spock knew enough to know that he became obsessed with Shakari and moved off.
Okay.
Off-world and stuff. So, I would assume that happened before Spock was born. But I might not be right about that. I mean, I don't think it's really been explored. So then he's got, you know, Spock and Michael, and they're both just, like, she can't get into the Vulcan Academy because she's too human, or she is a human. Spock is considered a human. He's not considered a true Vulcan. It sucks, man. The Vulcans are racist pieces of shit.
They are racist. Well, I mean, they just... Yes.
What happened to IDIC, guys? Infinite diversity, infinite combinations. Oh, my Lord.
It's a bummer. But
I don't feel like this was the most interesting way to do it, basically. Like, I think this was a really kind of a boring thing. Like, I don't want to just see them fighting in the courtyard, you know? Like...
Yeah. Again, like, I could have dealt with...
Over and over and over and over and over. Like,
I could have done with, like, a conversation there, or like some... Or like you said, maybe not that same scenario over and over. He could have, like, moved through different moments in his life, and maybe, like, she sees multiple of Sarek's regrets. They could have definitely done something different. I enjoyed the whole Vulcan martial arts thing. That was cool, but it just wasn't necessary for the episode to, you know, we talk about this all the time, the sort of Michael Bayification of Star Trek. And it just kind of felt like more of that. Like, we got to do this so people keep watching. We got to, you know, have them fight more.
Like, I do like that. I like the idea as like a first go, because the Vulcans were very physical, very violent species before they adopted the teachings of Surak and the teachings of logic. I like that there is that violence just beneath the surface, that they were once like the Klingons, and that is inherent in all Vulcans. That's why every 7 years they kind of go nuts and either, you know, have sex or kill somebody.
Yeah.
But I feel like we could have done that one time or maybe
Right.
the second time she subdues him, and then like they actually go on some sort of emotional journey, or she sees something. They could have played
They
with it a little
definitely
bit
could have
more.
done more with that. But I think what they were doing is they were trying to save the reveal for the end, and so I guess they could have just made this like maybe they go through the travels, and then people would have loved it. They could have shown a little bit of Spock or something, like some other moments from Sarek's life, and I think that would have been really interesting. But they didn't. They just kind of rested, and it did seem weird to me if he's like laying there dying. Is that his only large regret that he's focused on? It just kind of felt too convenient because Burnham is who he, and who knows, maybe that's why he's calling out to Burnham telepathically, because he's had this big regret, So I guess, it's okay. Anyway, let's move on from that. I think that's mostly what I have to talk about in this episode. Anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I was going to say, I think what they were going for is kind of a something. I think that they were trying to kind of draw a parallel between like Sarek is like Michael was the family that Sarek found, and he kind of put his own bullshit on top of her, and they were trying to push it towards like Tilly and Ash Tyler are the family that Burnham found. Does that make sense? And then also like there's a big it was a big theme of mentorship in this episode, like Sarek and Michael Burnham, and then Michael Burnham and Tilly, even with a little bit of Lorca and Tyler. And I even like that Michael Burnham learned from Sarek's mistakes and her own mistakes, and acknowledges that she gave Tilly bad advice.
Right.
Like that she was being like Sarek.
Yeah.
I liked all of that.
I like it, except again, I feel like it sort of just... It's further pushing Burnham away from her Vulcan roots, which I kind of...
Yeah.
It's to me what makes her interesting, and I guess, it's not a bad thing. It's one episode. It's not like it's going to have to be the entire theme of the show, but I kind of want her to continue to struggle with that, and her getting to a place where she feels like... It seemed like she got to a place this episode where she feels like, oh, I see, I'm human. Sarek was wrong. I was wrong for acting like Sarek. I'm a human, and it's like, and I'm good with that. But I guess we'll see. She has a lot to react to because she's got a lot to learn from going forward. I'm sure. I mean, we're only in episode 5 here, so there's a lot more to go.
I loved that Lorca keeps the phaser in his bed.
Oh yeah, that was amazing. That scene, the whole. I really liked the Lorca stuff, just in general. The Admiral, the way he seduces her, it was just all really good.
Yes. I loved how giddy and fun Stamets was this episode.
Me too. This is really the first chance we got to see tripped out Stamets.
Yeah, and he's just like, once you get past it's amazing once you get past the needles stabbing you.
Ooh, my Vulcan mind meld, that's so groovy.
Yeah.
He said groovy. You think that maybe one of the first times in Star Trek groovy was said?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. It seems like there's probably another time, but I don't know. I like the. I think it's funny that like the mind meld was created in the '60s with Nimoy, and Stamets hears about a Vulcan mind meld and says it's groovy.
Oh yeah, it definitely like evoked the time period at which it was invented.
Mm-hmm. I liked that in this timeline, or in this episode, or not this episode, in this series, the Vulcan extremists and the Klingons are both concerned about racial purity.
Yeah, I liked that too. It felt a little more like they're going more for. I don't know if we've discussed this on this show at all, but that definitely feels like they're trying to make a parallel between that and Make America Great Again.
A little bit, yeah. But
especially
I also
the Klingons, and I like that. I like that they're trying to tackle common issues or like current day issues, but it kind of felt like I don't know. It's interesting that they're trying to do that with both storylines. It seems like.
Yeah, I'm happy to see, and I would love to see more, because I found that to be a really interesting concept in Enterprise. I liked when they did it there. We didn't get rid of the Vulcan extremists from Enterprise, basically.
Right, there are still Vulcan extremists, which I did.
Yeah.
I really liked the idea of that Vulcan extremist at the very beginning of the episode when that Vulcan extremist blows himself up. I was very, very interested. I was like, "Ooh, I really hope we get back to that storyline." And yeah, love it. I liked that a lot.
Let's see. I think that's all I've got on the actual episode before we get into quotes and stuff and trivia.
Let's get into quotes, and then we'll get into some spoilers for the rest of the season, talk about the effects of this episode on the rest of the season.
Yeah.
I really only had one quote.
I've got a couple.
I got one. I didn't like a lot of the dialogue this episode. Nothing really stood out. Nothing was really that profound. The one piece of dialogue I liked was Ash Tyler says, "I've been close to death," right up next to it. And the way he says it, the way he delivers the line, just reminded me of Malcolm Reynolds. Yeah. I was like, oh, that's why I like Ash Tyler so much. He's the Malcolm Reynolds of this show. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I liked that a lot. What quotes you got?
I've got two quotes, and I did laugh at Stamets saying groovy, but I don't consider that a real quote.
Yeah, that's true. I probably would have used that. I thought too.
I loved Lorca saying, "You can tell the Vulcans you're welcome. I'm happy to clean up their mess." Like, damn,
that was so good. It was so good. Right after having the conversation about them thinking they needed to come clean up their mess. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really good, really pointed, really fun.
And I did really like. I guess I'll go 3 because I did, and I don't even have this one written down. I just remembered it. It did feel a lot like "Context is for Kings." I feel like it was said better there, but "rules are for admirals and back offices."
Yeah,
was a good line.
I did. I mean, I definitely liked the concept. The line just, I wasn't like blown away by the way it was said. But you're right. It did. I did definitely evoke the "Context is for Kings" line from a few episodes ago, and it made me think of the same thing.
Yeah, but my favorite is when he tells Ash Tyler, "Bring her back in one piece," and Ash kind of pats the shuttle and goes, "Not a scratch," and Lorca says, "I'm talking about her."
Yeah, I like
motioning to Michael Burnham, and then he says, "Or don't come back at all."
Yeah,
what the hell?
Yeah, that seems.
That is, oh my gosh,
a little silly.
I don't know, man.
Because I don't know. He doesn't actually want him not to come back.
But I don't know. But it is.
He wants to, but Ash wants to stay in his good graces, which we'll talk about more in a few minutes.
What did you before we jump into any more? I meant to go back and talk about this. How did you feel about the holodeck? Too much.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe a little too much.
The animated series, they had a holodeck, kind of.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess it's not out of the question. It did seem a little less holodecky and more like a simulation. Like it's definitely less.
It's a training program.
Yeah, it's a training program. It was a little less refined than the holodeck that we get in the future, and it's like their guns were. It was more like going to like laser tag. It seemed like.
Yeah, and I don't. I think that really the only thing that says that the holodeck is new in the Next Generation is the way Riker reacts to it. Yeah, but it might just be like that level of nuance,
right? Maybe his old ship didn't have one or whatever.
Or maybe it just looks different up close,
Right.
I don't know.
Different up close. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, you ready to get into some spoilers? Oh, did you have any trivia?
Yeah, I've got a little bit.
What you got?
Well, I was going to talk about that in Greek mythology. Lethe was both a river in the underworld and the Greek goddess of forgetfulness and oblivion. And there was actually a bunch of people who thought that this might be a connection, but there was a character named Lethe in the original series, Dagger of the Mind, and she was a therapist, and she talks about her violent past, and she's they thought maybe she was Admiral Cornwell.
Huh.
That Cornwell somehow becomes her at some point, and she might still, but I will say that they had planned to kill the character. The actress, Jane Brooke, said that the episode was supposed to end with the Admiral being killed in the Klingon massacre.
Interesting, but they decided not to do that.
She said they thought she would die in that massacre, but then they were like, maybe we'll have them be taken prisoner instead. And executive producer Gretchen Berg said that even having the Admiral Cornwell use her phaser against the Klingons during the incident would have complicated the story for the writers. And that's something that bothered me at the end of that episode, where you see she's got the phaser, but she doesn't use it.
Well, I feel like she's pretty trapped. I feel like you mean against the Klingons?
Yeah.
I think they get the drop on her. They kill her men immediately, and they have her at, like, knife point. I don't think she's pulling a phaser.
She actually had the phaser out.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Right. Well, still, I think they had her as much as she had them. If she had fired, she would have been dead, so... Probably death might have been preferred to imprisonment by the Klingons. That could be argued.
Maybe. The holographic battle simulation took 12 hours to shoot, and Jason Isaacs developed most of the fight choreography himself.
Huh.
Basing it on his previous film experience. How awesome is that?
Yeah, that is really awesome. And
I just bring it up because it makes me like him more.
Feels kind of lazy on, like, the Star Trek, like, production staff's part. Like,
maybe.
It just seems like you'd have a fight choreographer there, not go, Jason Isaacs has done things before. That seems like a weird thing to rely on.
I don't know that they relied on it specifically, or if he was just like, hey, I know how to do this. And they're like, all right, if you want to contribute that, that's fine.
Sure. Just, from a perspective of an artist, as someone who does art, just whenever I'm doing that kind of stuff, I always feel like I want to get, even like when I'm making my album, I play guitar a little bit, but I'm not as good as other guys. And so most of the guitar parts I get played by other guys, But, maybe, like you said, it could be just something he wanted to do. It is definitely neat. Because it was good. I didn't see it as, never crossed my mind that it wasn't realistic or whatever.
Yeah. By the way, the writer, this is the first episode of Star Trek he's written since Voyager's Unimatrix Zero, Part 2, which was another story about Vulcan-like characters, a.k.a. the Borg, exploring themselves inside of a mindscape.
Interesting.
He's got his little things, man. That's what I'm saying. And I didn't like those Unimatrix Zero episodes very much at all. I mean, it's been 18 years since I've seen them.
Yeah.
So I might feel differently now. That's all the trivia I have, though.
Cool. Well, let's dive into Spoiler Zone.
Spoilers!
We're going to talk now about everything that happened this season, because we have seen it. This is a rewatch, after all, but we don't want to spoil it until we got towards the end here. So if you've not seen the episode, check us out at StarTrekUCast.com for all the places. Subscribe, like, review, all that stuff. But let's talk about spoilers. This episode has a lot in the way of foreshadowing the truth about Lorca. Probably the most foreshadowing in that moment, where it shows his reflection and then like pans down to his phaser.
Right.
As I think it was the last shot of the episode. So that is definitely pointing at the fact that he is not who we think he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how they get, like, just the side of, like, Nemesis level of subtle on this episode. Because, like, Star Trek Nemesis, they weren't actually dealing with the mirror universe, but it was just like they were trying to, like, mirror everything. They even, like, mirrored the title, some of the letters in the title sequence, and then, like, every line out of, like, Shinzon or Picard's mouth is something about mirrors. I'm a mirror for you. You're a mirror for me. Ah! Like, all right. Well, at least they're just doing it visually here.
Yeah, this was definitely a lot more subtle. I mean, if I wasn't thinking mirror universe, I'm sure I noticed the reflection last time, but it did not make me think he was from the mirror universe. But in a rewatch, it's beautiful. There's a lot that goes on that's really beautiful on a rewatch. All the stuff with Ash Tyler being, well, see, and here's the thing. Ash Tyler's been programmed to get in the good graces of Lorca, whether he knows he has or not. So it trips me out that he doesn't know he's a spy, because a lot of his things seem very spy-like. How much he cares about getting in Lorca's good graces makes me think he knows what's going on, but he doesn't. It's just, you know.
Yeah, I should have mentioned this earlier, but I did love, like, Ash lying to Lorca, and Lorca saying, "Don't ever hide your excellence. I want my security officer to be a better shot than me."
Yeah.
That was great.
Lorca's a great captain. I know everybody hates him, but I kind of like him.
I don't hate him. I love him.
Oh, I know. You're with me on that. But so many people are just like, he's not a Star Trek captain, and I'm like, whatever, man. He's great. He's my kind of captain.
See, I think that's, you know, for as much as I, like, subscribe to precedent and canon, I so much more enjoy a good story over, like, what a quote-unquote Starfleet captain should be. Like,
sure.
I feel like so many people, like, and I've read, I was over on Amazon looking at the reviews for the Blu-ray of this season, and so many people gave it a bad review, not because, you know, just because they didn't like the show, not because they didn't like the Blu-ray, which is not how those Amazon things are supposed to work, guys. But, like, most of these people didn't even get past, like, episode 3 or 4. They were just like, this is a mean-spirited, hateful show, and I don't like it. Like, you didn't even give it a shot. You don't even know what happened in it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know, like, they're telling you in episode, like, 2, context is for kings. Like, you've got to figure out or episode 3, technically. You got to know what this is about before you can say it's not Star Trek. Anyway,
yeah.
Sorry.
I agree. And I think it's definitely different than other Star Trek, but I just, like, canon's one thing, and making sure your stuff lines up from that perspective, but I in no way care that all the characters have to be the same. I've said that over and over, but the homogenization of Star Trek, and particularly of Starfleet, bothers me a lot, because it's like you said, infinite diversity and infinite combinations. Like,
right. And it's not even an accurate complaint, because from all accounts, really, when you think about it, even from just the original series standpoint, Kirk was really just a good captain. Like, every time they had a different captain, they had gone insane and he had to stop them, or there was, you know, an admiral who didn't have the right idea and was going to screw everything up because of his own knee-jerk reactions, or there was a Commodore who was like, no, we're not going to save those people, we have a deadline, or, you know, even with Next Generation, Picard had to deal with those kinds of admirals and other captains. Like, Jellicoe was a dick. I'll always love Jellicoe for telling Troy to not wear pajamas on the bridge.
Yeah, but our primary captain has never been that way.
Right.
But that thing is, like, he's not our primary captain. And they're doing a different thing with this show. They are. They're it's about Burnham, you know. It really is, like, they're focusing on Burnham. And yeah, I forgot for a second, we were already in the spoiler section, but, like, by the end of the season, he's dead. At least this version of him.
Yeah, or he's, you know, a green flake on Tilly's shoulder or something.
Ooh.
Whatever that was.
Wait, the flake on his shoulder? Which what are you talking about?
There was, like, a little, like, I mean, I don't remember that well, but they made a point of showing, like, after he sacrificed himself, there was, like, this little green, like, mycelial flake or something that, like, landed on Tilly's shoulder. I don't know.
Interesting.
And people are trying to say that's him or something, and I'm like, I don't know about that, but
I don't know.
Whatever.
I'm gonna have to rewatch that part.
They actually had, like, the camera track the flake and then watch it land on her shoulder. Like, they made a big deal of it visually.
Interesting. I don't recall it. I'm sure I did at the time, noticed at the time, but it's been a while. Which is why we're going to continue our rewatch next week. Or in a couple days, or whenever.
Christmas is happening.
Like, this is Christmas? The fact that we get to rewatch this? I like it.
No.
I don't understand what you're saying.
I think that was just something kind of subconsciously that slipped out. That was like, there's pressure to get everything done.
Oh. Yeah, I don't think of Christmas that way. I have a lot of friends who do, and family, and I'm just like, dude, calm down. It's not what Christmas is about.
It's not. I agree.
You don't. I don't know. My brother wrote me this morning. He's like,
that pisses me off and stresses me out even more.
My brother wrote me this morning, and he was like, what do you want for Christmas? And I was like, I don't really like doing the list thing. I was like, man, you just get me if you see something you would like to get me, go for it. If not, I don't need a present. Like, I don't know. To me, Christmas is, like, the present part of it, at least, is about being thoughtful. And, like, if you see something you think I would like, go for it. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
None of the other stuff matters to me. I don't need gifts just because just because they're gifts.
Yeah.
But, so people that stress about the holiday, I'm just like, just enjoy the holiday. And don't let anyone else's view of how you execute the holiday bother you. It just bothers me.
That is one thing I do enjoy about being your friend. There's never been a ton of pressure with like getting you something.
Oh, never, man.
Sometimes we get each other stuff. Sometimes we just don't.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes, we've gotten each other cool things on some years. Then I'd rather not get you something for 10 years than get you something cool 1 year. like that's a cooler way to be to me. I don't know. I'd rather get something cool than like a bunch of weird things that don't really matter to me or whatever.
Right.
I don't care. Yeah, I just don't care. Anyway, yeah. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with us tonight. We will be back with you in a couple of days with the next episode of Discovery.
And I cannot impart to you how important it is and how much it means to me that you guys listen. That's my Christmas gift right there.
No. What he's asking is if you guys would please send us Christmas gifts.
I do have a wish list that has a lot of Star Trek Playmates figures on them from the 90s.
Right. And that's another thing. It's one thing to have a list and be like, yeah, that's fine. Like, Alyssa's, my girlfriend's family, they do presents purely on what everyone asks for. Like, so they all do like Amazon links or whatever. Or like, I want this thing, and they all just get those things. And to me, that just feels like money swapping. Like, I got you $100 thing, you get me $100 thing. Yeah. Like, I buy the stuff I want. If I have $100, I'll just buy the stuff I want. If you think of me as a present, get me that present. That's all I want.
I think last year, Spencer, my brother-in-law Spencer, who Matt knows.
Yeah, one of my best friends.
Yeah.
Listen to the Pursuit of the Trivia podcast if you want to hear more from Spencer.
We talked about like if like next year you just want to give each other the gift of not coming up with another gift.
Right.
It's just like not get each other anything.
Yeah, I forgot. Somebody wrote me and asked me if I wanted to do that, and I was like, I never expect you to get me a gift. Like, you don't have to get me a gift at all. My dad gives me that talk every year. Like, money's tight this year. I just don't know that we're going to be able to do a lot. And I'm like, I don't care if you do anything. I appreciate it when you get a present, but I don't expect anything. But I've been getting that same talk since I was like 15, and I've had the same reaction since I was like it just doesn't matter.
Yeah. And see, I'll never get that talk. Like, there will be, like, a statement somewhere, but, it'll just be, like, ridiculous. Like, we're going to spend a whole bunch of stuff, and here's a bunch of stuff, and then there will be resentment somewhere,
Yeah. I just don't buy into it. If people want to have some sort of pressure or issues, that's all on them. I ain't putting up with pressure. I ain't putting up with asking for anything. Or like, I don't know. None of that stuff. It's just not happening on this side.
Yeah, like if I have kids, they're not going to think Santa Claus is there. They're not going to think that. I mean, they'll probably wind up in therapy because I have more toys than them.
Oh, they'll definitely wind up in therapy.
Oh yeah,
not sure why. That's a plethora of reasons.
That'll be the first thing before they come to all the other more valid problems.
That'll just be the surface issue they go for, and then
that I've caused.
Yeah, and then they come to all the other things they realize were real fucked up. All right, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We'll be back very soon with the next episode of Discovery.
Live long and prosper, y'all.
To reach out to us, hit us up at StarTrekUCast.com, at StarTrekUCast on Twitter, Star Trek Universe Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for us there, or send us a message at StarTrekUcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv. And if you want to hear more from Matthew Carroll, that's me, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, or go listen to my music at MatthewCarrollmusic.com or anywhere you get music.